The length of a school bus. That's the distance protesters must keep between themselves and the door to healthcare facilities that perform abortions in Massachusetts. It's an area marked by a painted yellow line, and the law that requires these so-called buffer zones is now being argued before the United States Supreme Court.
I think we're here to save babies' lives, and that's the whole issue. We're here to stop killing.
Scenes like this used to be routine outside of abortion clinics in Massachusetts.
I don't want to call them Operation Rescue. They're terrorists.
Protesters from anti-abortion groups like Operation Rescue tried to block anyone from accessing the clinics, only to be confronted by counter-protesters, with police and those seeking to enter the clinic caught in the middle.
It's scary. I mean, you're approached by people you don't know. People are touching you. People are shouting things at you. It's a very scary thing.
Today, violent confrontations outside this Planned Parenthood clinic in Boston are unusual, thanks to this yellow line, marking a 35-foot buffer zone around the clinic that protesters cannot enter. It's part of a 2007 state law that protesters say prevents them from peacefully talking to clinic patients.
The difficulty is in having access to the individual on a more personal level so that they can see that you're human and that you're interested in protecting a human life.
We just want to be able to talk to them in a civil tone, just to, offer them a tract, some information.
Today, the U.S. Supreme Court heard arguments on whether the Massachusetts buffer zone law unfairly targets protesters.
This is America, thank God. And we have First Amendment right, which means gently speaking to someone, offering hope, help, and love. I should be able to do that.
But Attorney General Martha Coakley says the Massachusetts law balances free speech against a woman's right to access a legal medical procedure.
It seems to me that 35 feet is a perfectly reasonable way to balance what are the interests here that we're trying to protect.
The Supreme Court will likely issue a ruling in the spring. The issue of abortion is divisive and emotional, but the buffer zone law raises some major legal questions. I'm joined first by Renee Landers, a professor at Suffolk Law School and a board member of the Planned Parenthood League of Massachusetts, which provides abortion services. Welcome, Inland.
Thank you, Emily.
Renee. So in 2000, the Supreme Court ruled that these buffer zones were constitutional. Why is it coming up now? Why is the Supreme Court hearing it?
Well, I think for two reasons. One is the Supreme Court has taken a lot of First Amendment cases recently. The composition of the court has changed, and I have an assumption that the plaintiffs see perhaps an opportunity to try to test the continuing validity of that prior ruling.
Of course, they have been ruling in favor of the free speech issue recently as well.
Yes, no, they definitely have.
Yeah,
they
so
definitely
we'll
have. Yes.
All right, I want to bring another voice into the conversation. Ann Fox is the president of Mass Citizens for Life, New England's oldest and largest anti-abortion organization. Thanks for joining us, Ann. So I was looking at this studio, and interestingly, it's 35 feet, which is, that's a short distance, but you feel that it's too long a distance to be able to have a meaningful conversation with somebody entering a clinic?
Well, actually, at the hearings this morning, they pointed out that sometimes it's twice that because the 35 feet goes on into the street, so people are on the sidewalk, and it can be twice that. But the basic problem here is a First Amendment problem. What we've done is to say we're going to target certain people in certain locations and certain speech, which doesn't sound very American. I think the First Amendment is first for a reason. And there is another difference since and that is that the Massachusetts buffer zone now is 35 feet. In the year 2000, I think it was still just the bubble.
Yeah, it changed in
Right, no,
07.
it did, but the reason it changed is because of what you saw in the video that was the introduction to this conversation that we're having, because of that kind of, activity and that interaction with people that was going on that was impeding the ability of people to get into the clinics. And the buffer zone has worked to stop that kind of, potentially violent interaction.
Well, the issue that Ann raised is...
I have a question, though. Could I ask on that?
Yes.
I think that not that many locations in the country have buffer zones.
I think that's actually...
We're one of the few.
We are one of the few,
okay.
yes.
So if a buffer zone makes a place safer, then we should be hearing that all of these places that don't have buffer zones are less safe, and we're not. We're not getting any publicity across the board. There's just less of that kind of activity.
Well, that is is a factual question, and for the First Amendment analysis, you're absolutely right. The First Amendment is a very important amendment, but it is not the only part of the Constitution, and there is you may disagree with it, but there is another constitutional right at stake here, which is the right of women to have access to health care facilities. And I want to point out one other thing, is that abortions are not the only kind of thing that health care services that are provided in the Planned Parenthood clinics. Women access these clinics for contraceptive services, all kinds of gynecological services, so the action of interfering with entering the clinics also interferes with people who are just trying to receive normal health care.
But I want Ann to emphasize the point that I think I heard you were saying, that it's unfair because the employees of the clinics are exempt from this rule, and the employees can approach people coming in for all kinds of services and counsel them in ways.
No, they cannot counsel.
They can speak to them.
They can ask them if they want to go into the clinic, and that's it. They cannot counsel them about anything about abortion services.
It came up this morning in the arguments, and Justice Kennedy said that an escort or whatever, an employee of the clinic, could say to someone, abortion is safe. But the pro-life person cannot say abortion is unsafe. And Kennedy was extremely concerned also. He really pushed. He talked about strikes and all these other kinds. All these other kinds of things where people are outside and their rights are not restricted.
Well, but there are other circumstances where we restrict the rights. The Supreme Court itself restricts demonstrations on the public property outside its building, and for polling places in Massachusetts
and certain funerals.
There are limitations on how close people can come and approach people. And so I think that this is not the only instance in which we have tried to balance a person's legitimate First Amendment rights. I also want to go back to the size of the buffer zone, because the 35 feet is the distance from the door to the edge of the buffer zone. The people are closer to the edge of the buffer zone. They have to approach the buffer zone. So there is opportunity to be close to people and to actually speak to them in a normal conversational voice. And there was an AP report recently where an AP reporter observed people who were coming to the Planned Parenthood clinic have a conversation with some of the people who were counseling against abortion, go to the next door grocery store and get into a car and leave with those people. So it is actually possible to have a conversation and to do the counseling work that you would like to do, because actually Planned Parenthood wants the women who come to the clinic to have the opportunity to talk to whoever they would like to talk to about their health care decision.
Eleanor, who was the one who was interviewed, has said that prior to the buffer zone she was able to talk to hundreds of people, and now she's not. And you're talking about Commonwealth Avenue. On one side you have a supermarket, and you also have a school where students might live here and go to classes here. So you have more people going through who are not going into the clinic than people who are. The person on the outside has no idea. They don't know who's going in until the person's right by the door. Now, there were a number of amicus briefs filed from women who said that they had abortions, no one had talked to them, they regret their abortions. So it's not that we're saying no one should be able to go in there. We're saying some people need more information. Some people need more help and more love. And right now they're not able to get it.
All right. Renee Landers, Ann Fox, thanks so much.